Hello everyone, this is CJNovo992 and today we're back for another brand new video, and the video that we promised during Monday's live stream has finally arrived. Now again, I'm not 100% sure on the timing if I'm going to get it out in time for 6 o'clock because there's a lot of editing with the old graphics and that, but the video that was promised will eventually be delivered as we once again as a collective go ahead and scout and look into the top flight of Scottish football and see if there's domestic talent that could be cherry-picked. Now, I know the majority of my audience that tunes into each and every single video has been with me for many, many years, and by God, I thank yous for sticking with me right there. But just in case there is a couple of new people tuning in, or maybe that's joined us this season during the madness, that is, you've not seen this series before, we last uploaded, I think, 2-3 years ago. It would have been under Claim On as we sort of glanced and looked at 5 names. And again, just to give you an updates on them, of course, one of them was the obvious, Lauren Shanklin. It was the most obvious thing in the world, but too obvious for Rangers. Apparently, he's remained where he is at Hearts and obviously captains the side that leads the league. Another 2 names that we looked at during that video 3 years ago was Connor Barron, who was at Aberdeen, and Lyle Cameron, who was at Dundee. Both of them are here, and it's fair to say both of them are having slightly different Rangers careers so far, but it might be too early to tell in terms of young Lyle Cameron. Another name that we looked at was Luke McCowan, who's obviously went to Celtic, started off hot, went a wee bit off the boil because he can't keep his old mouth shut. And the 5th and final name on that list 3 years ago was young David Watson, who broke onto the scene at 18 for Killie, went on to win a Young Player of the Year, and currently remains at Rugby Park. But that was then. What about now? Is there anybody else in Scottish football? Is there different names there? Is there different people that could potentially make an impact and help this squad? Well, that's what we're going to go ahead and look at, ladies and gentlemen, with the domestic rules tightening, the homegrown stuff needing to go, especially for European football. Maybe the need for domestic players goes beyond us Rangers fans saying we need more players in the dressing room that knows what Rangers is all about. But actually now, with the rules getting stricter, it's damn vital to have players in and around the old setup. So we're going to go ahead and look at 4 names, I think, in today's video. We'll see how it all goes. Hopefully you do enjoy it. Hopefully you stick with me. And if you don't mind hitting that like button, that'd be sensational. Consider hyping this video or even subscribing if you are new around here, as there's just 700 spots to go till 70k troops. Imagine we can do that at the same time. We maybe lift some silverware. Oh, God, I might just vanish in a puffy smoke and you'll never see me again. But aye, any help would be greatly appreciated. But aye, enough chitter chatter, let's get into it. Now, starting off with the first name, who's the only name that was in last year's list. Guess who that actually is? No, it's not Lauren Shanklin. It is young David Watson, who is now 21 years old. Again, we looked at him so many years ago. He's just 21 years old. But the interesting thing regarding David Watson now, after playing the way is, you know what I mean? He had the burst on the scene, right? He had the big goal versus Celtic, had the big moment, went on to win the Young Player of the Year award, and then there was that. What would happen next? Would he sink? Would he swim? Was he just a flash in the pan? Well, it's good to say, ladies and gentlemen, after a couple of years of consistent football at Kilmarnock, David Watson is a much better player now than he was when we last looked at him, and a hell of a lot more well-rounded. And it is that well-roundedness now because, again, he is playing a lot of games. He is a focal point in the team. And because the Kilmarnock struggles this season, they really need their best players to really perform and dig out, and during the transformation of them and possible fight for them to keep into the league, a lot of that is relying on the legs, like David Watson, who again doesn't play every minute of every game, but if there's a big game and a big moment in most matches, actually he's in and amongst it, and he is heavily relied on, and that's a lot of pressure on a young player. But the best thing you can say about the kid is he is seemingly handling it and striving along, especially considering his contract situation. He's out of contract at the end of the season. That's a free transfer, barring a compensation fee and probably a hearing known as, if we do go ahead and sign him, right? So there is that little lure with that. And again, there's conversations. Is he gone to Rangers? Is he gone to Celtic? Is he gone down south? There's been some Premier League teams apparently looking at him as well. His name is often in the papers and linked, and his eyes could have been turned during the struggles at Kilmarnock, but his professionalism has really been on show so far this season, as he's just kept his heat down and grinded during the madness that his team's been through this season. His stats so far this season sit at 36 games played, 3 goals and 2 assists, which again isn't the biggest eye-widening stats. They're not great to look at, but again, he is a centre midfielder, and the way that Kilmarnock's been playing this season, a lot of that has been gone back. You know what I mean? A lot of that has been the defending, and that's why I say he's a lot more well-rounded now, because again, he had the late runs in the box. You could see he was a trier all the years ago, but now he's got a bit. He can put his body in there. He has toughened up. He can tackle, can slide, and again, he can get it from point A to point B, where again, if you break down the old stats, he is high in the SPFL charts for that as well. So he's definitely impressed me, and it's good to see a guy that did burst something saying continue to develop, and now his contract is expiring at the end of the season. Is this one we can look at and think to ourselves, well, there's a domestic player, whether it's going to be in the starting 11, which I imagine a lot of people would say no, not a bit, a domestic player to sit on the bench to fill another void, and a guy that can come into these tough away days when slide challenges are flying about, when you're away to a tough away day and you need somebody that knows what it means and can put his body on the line. There you are, ladies and gentlemen. You could say he's a bit too similar to Connor Barron in that way, but again, Connor Barron has shown his importance to a Rangers side, and that type of energy and that type of play style for me gets me going as a Rangers fan. That's why I loved Ryan Jack in the squad, and I always thought we were better when Jacko was in there, and I think you can make an argument we're often a better solid side with Barron in there. It could be another one cut from the cloth, especially at that cut deal price. So ladies and gentlemen, it might be 3 years later, but David Watson is still one to watch. And to finish up, he's worn an armband several times for Scotland's under-21 side. He's played 42 games last season, 45 games the previous season. He'll get into that range again this season, so he's fit, he's reliable, he's available, graphs his absolute arse off, and again can pop up with a big moment, because if you liked years ago with him scoring against Celtic, well, he's done that again so far this season, so he's staying enough out there, and again, he is a guy with over 100 appearances in the top flight of Scottish football at 21 years old. But don't worry, I know the stat happy people there need the specifics. So it's 139 games, it's 13 goals, it's 6 assists, it's 30 yellow cards. He's got 10 yellow cards this season, by the way. He's been sent off twice in his career, including once this season. So he's got a wee bit. And if you've been thinking your midfield is sometimes too powder puff in the big moments, there's another guy that could put himself about when required. Maybe just pulling the reins a wee bit regarding them. But there he is. All these years later, he's still on the list. That is David Watson. Would you sign him on a free transfer? Is that the type of signing you think we need, especially to fill the homegrown quotas going into the new instructions? You can let me know down in the comment section below as we move on to player 2. And in my head, I originally planned this to be a certain centre-back who we are heavily linked with and possibly could sign this summer. But I guess if we're talking about like a midfielder, a grafter in the middle, we may as well talk about the other one on the list. Then we can move into different positions and break them all down. So I'll park the Mr. Graham conversation for a minute and go ahead and talk about the Motherwell man. No, not Cedric Itten. No, Fashion Sakala. I'm of course talking about Elliot Watt. Now, depending on how much social media you go ahead and do, you've probably seen certain Elliot Watt's tweets over the last couple of years go viral, as he is a big Rangers fan. So if you're one of those guys that wants that tick to truly appreciate the club, by God, you couldn't get a bigger fan. Honestly, some of his tweets, I'm like, whoa, he's going to go ahead and get himself in trouble there. But he wears his heart on his sleeve, and he's went ahead and joined Motherwell this season at the age of 26 years old, and just been a tremendous success. And it's interesting, right? Because if we wanted to do domestic, if we were just looking at the best players in Scottish football, there'd be probably 3 Motherwell players on this list, because you would talk about the spine that's gave them the season that they've had. Elliot Watt, the guy that runs the ship, in my opinion. You've then got Elijah Just, who I think is just a brilliant creative player. Honestly, if you ever want me to break down the rest of the league, not just domestic, but go ahead and look at players that could really make an impact, there's a certain Australian internationalist that's gone to the World Cup leading this league in terms of creativity that is a brilliant wee player, and obviously Maz Wednesday, who we all know, we've all talked about to death up front. So Motherwell's had a very good season, and where the latter two there sort of steal a lot of the headlines, for me, it's the guy in the middle of the park, the orchestrator in the middle, that gets Motherwell gone. And maybe it's because I made the video last Friday that some of you went ahead and watched regarding what's missing in the middle of the park and narrowing in and talking about the Davises and everything like that, saying that we just need somebody to dictate some tempo in there. So maybe that's why this type of midfielder does grab my attention. Now, to be fair, Slattery certainly deserves a lot of respect as well. He's been very good for Motherwell, but there's just something about Watt that you can tell the way he plays, the way he can pick the ball, the way he can put it there, the way he can just chip the ball earlier. There's certainly talent in the 26-year-old. Now, I know this next part's going to be absolutely ridiculous to a lot of people, but I have seen some negativity regarding his age and the fact that he is 26, that he's almost too old to go ahead and sign right now. Are we talking about football, troops, or are we talking about the X Factor categories for 10 years ago that if you were 25 or over, you're basically looked at like a pensioner? Because 26 is nothing in the old footballing standards. And again, I know he would technically be our oldest centre midfielder, but that's not the worst thing to need. A wee tiny touch of experience there, or at least someone, again, that's been around the block that can pick up the ball and again take it for A and deliver it to B. Because I know we often don't get to the analytical stuff here, like the proper nerdy numbers right here on the channel, because we'd be here all day breaking everything down. But if you get into the proper analytical side and look at Scottish football as a whole, you look at midfielders for their ball carrying and getting it for there, the ball progression, taking it for the middle, taking a wee turn, beating somebody on and chipping in and creating an attack. This guy right here is in the top categories of all of them from a stats point of view. And again, no disrespect, he is playing for a Motherwell side who, yes, I know have played some lovely stuff right there, but they didn't always dominate the ball, or they're not going into every single game, especially the old firms type of games, expecting to have all the ball, yet he's still right there. And again, he is very similar from a stats point of view to Nico Raskin. Now, he has played 35 games this season, scoring 4 goals and picking up 3 assists, which honestly fried my brain. I was like, how the hell is it just 3 assists? And then I remember some of the stats that we looked at in terms of Kamara the other day there and Davis. And again, I'm not saying he's Stephen Davis or Glenn Kamara. Of course I'm not. But that type of midfield role, you can see why it's often left behind from a stats point of view. But thankfully, the game isn't played on a laptop, troops. Is played out in the grass, and you can see it with your eyes that he is a top performer so far this season. But again, I'm not really sure what the interest in him is actually going to be. But again, he is hard to ignore when you put in domestic and you put in top performers, because Elliot is up there every single time. There is some downsides regarding Elliot Watt, however, that I feel I need to talk about right here. As again, I'm trying to speak about these players, but one thing you need to look at is his contract situation. His original contract runs to 2027 with an option from the club to 2028, so he would costs a wee bit, and we know that Motherwell likes to stick their feet in and get the best possible value, which is well within their right, but they're not easy to negotiate with. And of course, if you actually look at it, this is his first season in the top flight of Scottish football. His career at like Burton and even a wee bit in St Johnstone and all that in previous years isn't exactly, oh wow, that's amazing, but some guys strike it and find their prime and find the level at certain stages. They're not all 18, 19, 21 year old prospects. It's tipped for the absolute moon and they take off. So for the sake of balance, it does make me a wee bit nervous that he is in his first year and he is performing really high. But again, do you pick him now before the price gets even freaking higher? I guess I'll leave that one to you, ladies and gentlemen. But that's the second one on the list. And where I think that one's potentially a controversial one, we do move on to the third one where I think a lot more people will be in agreement. And that is going to be Mr. Luke Graham, who again is constantly linked with. You see him in the papers, you see it all there. And again, I think 90% of the stuff that often gets fired out there is absolute dribble, because just like us, these companies and these papers and these media outlets and everything like that need to get like links, need to get clicks. And during the international break, there's no a lot actually out there, so I know everyone go, oh my god, there it is, it's massive, it's gonna be a done deal, where there's no confirmation it will be there. He is a name that continually and frequently gets linked with this football club, so let's dive into it, especially in the centre-back crisis we truly find ourselves into going in to next year with Big Manny Fernandez's name. God, was he so good for Nigeria, even getting bigger and bigger and bigger. The interest is going up there. You've got Giga going back on loan. You've got Cornelius banished to the Nether realm, and you're just left with John Souttar. So we are in a centre-back crisis. Could this big laddie be a help? Let's go ahead and talk about it. But in case you don't know about Luke Graham is a 22-year-old centre-half who is left-footed and who's played the majority of the season at the left centre-back spot, whilst a couple games at left-back showing that he is big, he's powerful, he's physical, but he can get about the park. You know what I mean? He's not a big lumbering guy that can't run. He's not a guy that can't get off the grunt. He is the modern day centre-back in that way, so he is comfortable enough on the ball. But what I really like about Luke Graham, and I don't know how to say this in a way that doesn't sound like I'm trying to put the laddie down or just sound a wee bit nasty, but he has got that nastiness to his game. You know what I mean? He just puts himself in there, and he seems like a centre-back bully that is just waiting to really take the next step. Now, I know I often seemingly pick Dundee players, so people think I've got a soft spot for them, but there's just players in there, and I think they do a very, very good job and an underrated job as a football club of identifying talented players and giving them a platform to play. And I look at Luke Graham and I see him in the next line, the guy that could potentially move to one of the old firms or even down south and take to it in there, because he's got every single attribute you want for a centre-back. Again, he's even got that one that I really like, and that's a bit of a mean streak. But I'm going to be honest with you, right? I often plan these videos and start obviously looking into more teams and that, so I've got a better understanding, so I'm not just sitting here blindly talking about crap. Now again, I'm usually wrong about everything, but I do actually try to give you good videos, right? So I've known for a wee while that it was either going to be this international break or the next international break we would make this type of video, and Luke Graham's been on my list for several months. It's probably the first preview video that we've done on Dundee, but I did score his name off just a couple weeks ago when the news came out that John Souttar had signed a contract extension, and I thought to myself, well, there's the third, fourth choice centre back of the football club for next year. There's the homegrown talent, so I don't expect us as a club to look into Scottish football and go ahead and pick up another one right there. You know what I mean? Because I wasn't expecting Manny Fernandes to truly turn on the flames and become the player he is right now, and we'll do well to keep a hold of him in the summer. But I just thought with that contract extension, he's so pay that it meant that Luke Graham wasn't wanted. But it's got to be said, the way that John Souttar has played since signing that contract, and again, I know I often get criticised, but I think for a while now at this football club, he's been really poor. He is the weakest of every centre-back partnership we ever try to put in there. I think the penny might have just finally dropped at this football club with the absolute shakiness that is your backline when he's a part of it, and then suddenly all you do is withdraw him. It's the same formation, it's the same other players, everything else. You just take him out there and you put somebody else who was known as a bomb scaler in terms of Giga, and you see the gaps getting plugged and you see the defence starting to look good again. That I think it's maybe just dropped that this football club needs a better quality of a centre-back and a better servant that needs to come in and be able to play these games if we want to truly be a successful Rangers team. And I think that's maybe happened over the last couple of weeks, because not only have you seen Sope dropped to the bench, but you're then starting to hear and see all these links come back again. And who knows, ladies and gentlemen, contract extension or no, there's no guarantees with the way that Souttar has been took out in the final line, because it was clear as day what the problem was back there, that he is going to be here at the start of this season as the third or fourth choice, that I was happy with him or being or no a decent-ish World Cup, maybe a couple wee signings at the centre-back, and then, ladies and gentlemen, this football club might just get a wee bit of moolah. Now, would it be ballsy to give away Souttar and spend the money on Luke Graham, who again is still only 22 years old and no showing he can handle the weight of the old shirt? Absolutely, ladies and gentlemen. But if you're talking about, again, statistically good defenders in this league, top defenders domestically, you didn't look much beyond Mr. Luke Graham, who's played 35 games in all competitions. You like your centre-backs being able to bag a few goals and create a couple of things. He tickles that box as well with 3 goals, 2 assists. But even despite the way he plays the game, and again that wee bit of the mean streak and giving the centre forward a hard time, he's gave our centre halves a couple hard shifts. If I'm honest, he doesn't put himself in jeopardy, and maybe that's again up there that he times his challenges right. Again, he's no shy to take a yellow, but he's no reckless back there. As despite all the games and despite the struggles that Dundee's had overall in the season, he has been booked just 3 times, which might seem like a nothing stat to a lot of people, but considering the way he goes about his business, that shows you that he's actually pretty damn good, troops, at defending. The only other thing that I forgot to mention, by the way, is his contract status as it runs to 2027, so he would cost a little bit, but I tell you, if you hang about and you wait about and Dundee are able to get a new contract over the line and bump that extension up there, that's going to cost even more freaking money. So it's all depending on how you want to look at this, ladies and gentlemen. Do you go and get him now and pay what it takes to get him in the door, or do you just don't think he's the right option? Again, the last time we won this league, we had 7 centre-backs on the books. This season, as we go in and going into next season, we have 4 on the books right now, but going into next season in terms of legit centre-halves, we have 2. So aye, do we need reinforcements? Is he the type of reinforcements? You can let me know in the comment section below. Now, I'll be honest, I don't know how many people are still going to be watching to this point, because it's not really a clickbaity topic. It is the international break, and so far we've talked about a hard grafter in Watson, an orchestrator in Elliot Watt, and then a big, strong, nasty-ish centre-half in terms of Luke Graham. And there's no too many big stats to break down and keep, folks. Attention, but if you do love the stats and you love the goal stat, troops, by God, do we have a player for you as we get to number 4 and we move to up front and talk about Barney Stewart. Now, big Barney Stewart is 21 years old. He stands at around about 6'2", 6'3" of a height. He is a tall drink of water, and again, his contract runs to 2028 plus a club year extension, which looks like a brilliant bit of business for Falkirk, by the way, especially getting him in, especially timing it right as well. When this kid started to get hot, when this guy started to bang in the goals, Falkirk never wasted a boot, and that's a sign of a very, very well run football club. And I just like this guy's story, if I'm honest with you, right? Because a couple of years ago he was playing university football. I'm sure everybody's seen the clicks. I know it gets run to death, but I just like that, because again, he wasn't a highly touted prospect. He wasn't a tip for the moon. He wasn't done or this. He had to really come up the hard way. And even just a year ago, nobody was talking about Barney Stewart. Nobody was talking. This guy was having to graph for every single bit of game time just to show glimpses of what he's actually got. And then eventually he was given an opportunity to start some games, and then they started to play in to his strengths. And to say the kid took off like that is a genuine understatement. Because I promised you some lovely stats to go ahead and look at. Well, by God, they have some for you. 27 games, 17 goals, 2 assists for a 21-year-old big centre forward. Now, I know, to be fair, some of those numbers does include the championship, as he was obviously there for the start of this season, and some people didn't like to look into that stuff. Some people look down on that league, despite, again, us spending £5 million on a Division 3 striker for Germany, who I think is a very talented player, and that's a more of a benefit and a shout to show there is quality in the low leagues. But let's just say we rub out the championship stuff, right? We rub out the first 6 months of this season. If you really, really want to narrow it down and look at just his top flight stuff since joining, or going back to Falkirk and being recalled at the start of January, this kid's played 12 games and he's got 9 goals, by the way. And some of them, when I tell you, are absolute finishes. I truly mean it. Now, the biggest headlines that he got was obviously scoring a hat-trick versus Hibs, and I think I don't really need to sit here and tell you hat-tricks versus Hibs didn't happen too often, especially with the Rangers strikers over the last decade or so. I think the last time was obviously the Moroccan Prince Igaman, and he was decent at the old football. And again, of course, I'm not saying Barney's the next Igaman or Igaman's Barney, whatever like that, but it's just highlighting that's a pretty damn impressive stat, and the kids already ticked that box. But of course, that's just the league form and the league goals when you break that down. For Falkirk, he's also scored a couple big goals in terms of the cup competition as well, including a goal versus Dundee United in the quarter-final to make sure his side reached a semi-final. Striker scoring a goal in a quarter-final to get their team to a semi. That must be nice. Promised myself I wasn't going to cry during this break. But moving on, I know most people didn't want to talk about the championship, but just in case you were curious, on his first 6 months of this season, when I told you he was on form, he started 7 games in the league. He scored 6 goals, troops. This is a guy that knows where the back of the net. This is a guy that shoots. This is a guy that fits maybe the mould of what Danny Rowe is wanting from his strikers. He wants tall guys, right? He's 6'3". He wants guys that are athletic, the kid can run all day. He wants guys that can hold the ball. The guy's shown that already, but the big thing with him, troops, is he's also putting the ball to the back of the net pretty damn regularly as well. And again, I'm not sitting here saying he will be the starter. He's better than Chimete, he's better than any boys right here. But if you're talking about strength and depth, you're talking about building a strike force to hopefully not only win you league titles but other cups and get you deeper in to competitions, you need that depth. We've seen that. We highlighted that last Friday. And if, say, Bojan isn't going to work out at this football club because Danny doesn't want him or doesn't trust him in those positions, whatever reason that is, you're sitting saying that Barney couldn't come in and fill the third striker role at this football club and push up even further than that. If you're playing 4 treble 2, you've got another guy there that can run about, that can hold the ball, that can touch and bring others into play. But again, he's got that added feel of feeling good about yourself right now because everything he's hitting's gone into the back of net. That's a very, very, very good habit to have for your centre forward. And again, when you boil this down to the barest of bare bones, for height, for play style, for even playing in the lower leagues and coming up to this stage, there is some striking similarities with the gamble we made with Ryan Nadiri, where again I think that will go right and it'll swing in our favour because he looks a talented player. Is it worth to roll the dice again in terms of this centre forward before he keeps scoring and then ends up getting coasted more and more and more? This one's fascinating to me. Barney Stewart, yes or no for the striking position at Rangers Football Club to help either in and amongst the games or helping that depth. Now again, he is a guy that's not had much experience and that might scare some people. You might be thinking, oh God, is this an Alan Gow situation? Oh God, is this a purple patch situation? He could fall off a cliff. But again, the way the market is these days, you sometimes need to strike early and strike fast to get these people in the door. So fascinated with this one, ladies and gentlemen. Where do you sit with Barney Stewart? Is it time just to take a breather and wait to see if he can consist it over another season? Or do you not want to risk somebody else coming in the summer and picking this goal scorer up? Fascinated. Let me know down in the comment section below. Now at the start of this video, I believe I said I had 4 names. That's a lie, and as usual I'm wrong, ladies and gentlemen, because I have a 5th name on here, and this one's going to be maybe the pick of the lot, or the most exciting of the lot, because sit with me for a wee second, right? Just give me a couple minutes more of your time, because I'm going to tell you about a Kelly player right here, right, who is 19 years old, that has European experience, that's an international for his side now. He's been capped for Scotland. 19, European experience, capped. He's already shown he can score a big goal, can play various different positions, whether the team's playing well or if he's needing to dig out a result. He's shown it all at the young age of 19. Does anybody know his name yet, ladies and gentlemen? Well, I'll tell you, the name of all that excitement is Finley freaking Curtis. And look, I get it, it's obviously a wee bit of a joke and a wee bit of highlighting, but if he was our Kelly player permanently, we'd all be glancing at the guy and be like, we really need that. That looks real amazing. Let's strike with the iron. It's hot. Well, the best thing, ladies and gentlemen, is the 5th player we're here to talk about to help us in the homegrown domestic side of the game is who? Frickin' player, and he's coming back after gaining some valuable minutes in his leg and valuable game time under Neil McCann, that yes, has maybe played him in a couple of positions, but he's playing him, and he's playing him when he needs him, just like we were saying about Watson earlier on, who also has European experience. By the way, these are tough seasons and the kids are needing to grow up right there, and it's maybe been, right, Jesus, right, I went for the Rangers expecting it, now I'm in here in the trenches and every single point is vital to remain in this division, and the guys went ahead and played 28 times in all competitions for both us and Kelly at my current time of recording. Now, Curtis has scored 4 goals and he has 3 assists, which some people might sneer at when you look at a winger, but again, some context needs to be had. Those 28 games, by God, aren't all starts. Very little of them, especially for us, were starts. Now, Kelly has been getting a good run at games, and what made me so happy, and I imagine there'll be a couple of other Rangers fans out there, that when he did score finally for Kelly and he got that goal, did you see what the Kelly commentators were saying? I know the clips were everywhere on social media, but they couldn't speak higher of this young laddie, and the way they were talking about, he deserved that goal. He's deserved it because he's been brilliant since he's come in. He's so important to this team. That's music to my ears, and I'm so proud of him for going in there, because again, we've seen young players touted for this, touted for that, get loaned out and they flame out because again, their attitudes aren't right. There's someone fighting and scrapping for his Rangers future. And for me, I think about this domestic stuff, needing to tick boxes and homegrown and all this type of stuff you need for European and cup competitions, all this stuff we need going forward. I'd much rather have a guy like Curtis in amongst it, even if it is on the bench, being able to come off, rather than us needing to play third and fourth choice centre backs and fill in the bench with they type of options, and a third goalkeeper and do this, so we can sort of spin all the plates and fill our bench with a homegrown talent. I'd rather have wee Curtis in and amongst that, ready to come on and hopefully make an impact. So I just wanted to make that wee point at the end of the video there, that if he wasn't a permanent Rangers player, if we were sitting glancing there, we would be looking, he would be getting touted higher. But let's not be dismissive and look down on our own, ladies and gentlemen. So he's coming back to us, and I hope he's a big part of Rangers' future. And if I'm honest with you, that's us. Done and dusted, ladies and gentlemen. There is obviously talented players in there, other players we could go and look at, but that's the ones that stood out to me this season, and I've took a marker down and I've took a name down when I've been making these preview videos. Do you have anybody else you want to talk about? Get involved down in the conversation. As I tried to show during this live stream, this isn't just about me. I want to know your opinions. I want to know your thoughts. How many of them would you take at Rangers? If any of them, do they all aren't good enough? Do they all need to be moved on? And do you know what the best part is? If they all turned out crap several years later, I would say it was just an April Fool's joke, and I'll play it right there. But that's me done and dusted, ladies and gentlemen. I'll be seeing you over into. Thank you so much for watching. All the best, and bye bye.